Hello, everyone. Good evening, and how you guys doing today? It's another lovely day, and this time around, we're not going live on YouTube. As you can tell, this is a recorded video. I am not at my station at the moment. I'm out of town, and I thought to record tonight's session so that I can premiere it live when it is the call time, because I'm not sure I will be very much available to deliver the session at that time. So follow me closely. I've got something interesting for you tonight. And this time around, I am using slides. Yay! Most of you are going to be seeing my slides for the very first time. And without much ado, let me just get right into it and share my slides. Just give me a moment. Okay, that's good. So we're focusing on the new me in 100 days. And this time around, we're moving on to where we left off with, which is a series on your goal setting blueprint. And let me just go, I'll cut the video feed right now so I can focus on the slides. Yep. So starting with the goal setting blueprint that we've been on for the past 5-6 weeks, I want to just do a bit of recap on what we have been dealing with. First, we started on clarity. If you recall what we did with clarity, and next we went to comprehension. All the videos are available on YouTube. And as I've advised, you guys should go and check the video again and again, because there will always be something to learn and to pick up from time to time. The second is comprehension. The third is capacity. The fourth session was commitment. And the fifth one, the last session we had, was courage. And I'm sure all of us in the room are pretty much encouraged as of now. So tonight, we're taking it a step further, and we're dealing with concentration, because I understand this is where many of us have a bit of a challenge dealing with the issue of distraction. So I believe the sixth C will address most of the questions that we will be dealing with in the course of our challenge. Out there, there's so much noise that is fighting for our attention. Our attention is the biggest asset that we have, because that is what helps our decision-making faculty. And there is so much noise out there fighting for our decision. One of them is the goal that we pursue on a daily basis and all that it entails in pursuing that goal. All these are noises out there. Advertisement is noise. Demand from family is noise. The pressure to get your standard of living upright is noise. Transportation is noise. Music is noise. All kinds of noise out there. And they don't necessarily have to be by way of sound waves. There are all kinds of things that are fighting for the same attention that we give to our natural senses, whether it is our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, or our skin. So much is demanding for our attention out there. And that is why it is increasingly becoming difficult to concentrate, to focus, to get your mind in one place. And that is exactly what we want to deal with tonight. Every now and then, we are always thinking. Our mind is never idle. There's always something going on in our mind every now and then. And I've shared it a couple of times in this session that an average adult has up to 80,000 thoughts going on in his mind or her mind on a daily basis. 80,000 thoughts. This is staggering. So much going on in our mind. And most of these thoughts are pretty much repetitive thoughts that are happening about the same thing in our lives. And all of these are drawn from what our senses, especially our natural senses, what they capture. And I've shared with you in previous sessions that out of all these 80,000 thoughts, only a few of them, very few, are conscious thoughts. Most of them are actually saved in our subconscious and unconscious thoughts. So I thought I should use this opportunity to explain that concept properly. And that is what I want to do today. Because if we actually have all those 80,000 thoughts on the same plane in our consciousness, we really cannot survive because the brain is not wired to multitask. The brain is only wired to embark on one task at a time. That is why the space or the room that is available for the brain to operate per time is the conscious mind. And everything else is relegated to the secondary phase, which is the subconscious and the unconscious, so that we don't have our minds cluttered all the time, which is what happens on a daily basis. That is why we have the gift of sleep. It is when we sleep that our mind actually declutters all the noise that has been going through during the day. And that is when we have things that we call dreams, or what we call mind mapping, where all the pictures of the day, some of them begin to feature in the night, and some of them begin to get defragmented and recalibrated into different subfolders in our memory. And this is what sleep helps us to achieve. Now, let me break down the different consciousness that we have when we go through our thoughts. Starting with the conscious mind. This is a process where we have one thing going on at a time. Like I explained before, it is the very present moment. It is a present tense situation. For example, what is going on your mind right now on the conscious level is what you are listening to. That is, if you are listening to what I am saying, that will be what will be active on your conscious mind. And if you are distracted, maybe you have a phone on your hand and you are scrolling through and reading some other messages, that is what will be on your conscious mind. The brain is not wired to capture multiple things in the consciousness. That is why you find yourself in a situation whereby if you are distracted, maybe while a session is going on or while a conversation is going on and something else distracts you, the next thing you will say is, oh, sorry, I didn't get you. What did you say? The reason is very simple. The brain cannot capture both things at the same time. So it can only take space or take room for only one thing in the conscious mind. And the conscious mind primarily responds to sensational input. What is sensational input? What goes on within your five senses? Your sense of sight, your sense of smell, your sense of savor, your sense of skin, and your sense of sound, which is your hearing sense. Now, that is where the conscious mind resides. Now, let me give you an example of the things that happen in the conscious state of your mind. Your present thoughts, your willpower, your logic, your short-term plans, your awareness of the present moment, perceptions, what you think about something, your present task, your likes, your dislikes, all your sequential flow of activity. These are the things that go on a second by second, millisecond by millisecond, moment by moment basis in your conscious mind. What is going on in your conscious mind this second can be different from what is going on in your conscious mind the very next second. But it only takes one element of memory per time. That is your conscious mind. Now let's go to the subconscious mind. This is like a hard drive or a memory storage of all the programs that have brought you thus far. If you recall the session we had where we talked about failure code, I made you understand that right from the moment you are in your third trimester in the phase of your life, up till this very moment, you have started exposing yourself to memory. Right from the third trimester, the mind is open to learning and observation. And within the first 7 years of your life, you are simply learning and observing. And everything that you're learning, you are storing. And that is why anything that you learn and you don't understand, you always query. That's why your 5-year-old, your 7-year-old, your 4-year-old is always asking you a billion questions every minute, because that is the state of mind at that moment. By the time you cross to your 12-year-old, that is when the mind is open to learning by repetition. That is why in school, you have what you call the times table, you have what they call the rhymes, you have what they call the poetry, and all of them are based on frequency and intensity, because they make you to learn by repetition, because repetition eventually fuels retention, like I've shared before. Now, by the time you cross from your 12-year-old to your adulthood, you begin to have what you call your feelings and your belief systems, which is premised on the programmings that are stored in your mind. Now, all these things, they don't stay on the conscious mind, because the conscious mind is like a temporary memory. The subconscious mind is more of a permanent memory. That is where all the things that has happened in the course of your life are stored. Some of them you can remember when you trigger them or when you query for them, and some of them you might not. I will tell you where those ones actually go to. Now, these accessible programs, they are available on demand. For instance, if I ask you things that happened 5 years ago, it takes only a couple of seconds for you to think about it and you remember. If I ask you what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, as far as your subconscious mind can bear, it can recall. But there will be some things that I will ask of you and you will barely remember, and they will just vaguely be on your mind. That is where the unconscious mind comes to play. Now, for the subconscious mind, it may require to some extent for some things that have been saved a long time ago and have not been accessed, or that you do not use frequently, they get saved even in a more permanent folder within the subconscious mind. And it might require meditation or hypnosis to trigger the memory to come back to the fore. Okay? Now, part of these things include your deep thoughts, the mental permission you give yourself, insight, intuitions, feelings, passions, life solutions, imaginations, your habits, your value systems, your wisdom, your emotions, your permanent memories, your discoveries, inner peace, your happy memories, your happy experiences, your inventive triggers, your true desires, and so on and so forth. Limitless creativity, all of these things, these are just a few of so many things that are resident in your subconscious mind. You don't think about them every day, but the moment you need them, you can always access them. All right? Now let's go to the unconscious mind. This is a deeper, permanent memory. It's a lifetime memory of all programs, and I call them classified programs for a reason, because this is the part that we don't open every day. This is like our vault, because every folder in our minds have sectors, and there are some sectors where you just have classified information. This is where your best kept secrets are resident, because you don't call on them every day except when the need arises. It requires a level of authorization to trigger these memories. There are people that suffer amnesia. There are some people that suffer memory loss and all that. Most of the things that they lose, or most of the things that they couldn't access at that point, are actually stored in the unconscious mind. There are things that might have happened to you maybe when you were a baby, and you may not remember. And it could just be a smell. Maybe you visit your hometown and you just smell something, and it just triggers some memories that you'd never thought of before. That memory was actually stored in your unconscious mind. It could be a sound. It could be a visual. It could be a skin sensation. It could be anything that is tied to any of your natural senses that is saved in your unconscious mind. It requires deep meditation to tap into superior intelligence to draw out these things. Now, in the subconscious mind, that is where you actually have infinite information, unending information. Even the answers that we seek in this universe, the answers that we seek on planet Earth that we really cannot get with our natural senses, this is where they reside, in our unconscious mind. And part of the things that we find in our unconscious mind is what you call your violent motives. Because every one of us, we all have the dark sides of our lives that we suppress because of our value system. Everybody has immoral urges. Everybody has immune system. Even the things, the systems in your body, the process by which they run, the memory is actually stored in your unconscious files. A very good analogy of this is your computer. If you look at your computer right now, you will see that there are parts in the hard drive in the computer where you can store your regular everyday files. And there are parts in your computer where the kind of files that are stored there is what you call system files. They are not files that are open to the public. They are not for everyday use. They are actually files that enable the computer to run. It is in the same process. It is in the same analogy that we also have different system files in our body, that the process with which they run, the memory with which they run, the data that drives them are stored in our unconscious mind. We can't even access them because they are unconscious information. Our fears, our phobia, or our philia, which is our life, all those things that we love to do, our deep-seated desires or our deep-seated fears, these things are stored in our unconscious mind. Our selfish needs, they are stored in our unconscious mind. Our shameful experiences, they are stored in our unconscious mind. Things that you don't even want to share, even with your best friend. All these things, deep-seated secrets, incredible abilities. Even this is also the seat of creativity. The things, I've said it a number of times in this session that we don't know our own strength. Now, this is where most of our strength is resident. This is where adrenaline that gives us the extra drive to do some things that we couldn't regularly do, this is where it is stored. Our spiritual core is stored in this place. Our faith, our belief system is also stored in our unconscious mind. Our sexual fantasies, our dreams, all these things are stored in the unconscious mind. So you can see when we break down our mind into things that we use readily every now and then, or things that we use once in a while, or things that we rarely use or we don't use at all, you will understand how the mind helps to process our thoughts in such a way that we don't go crazy. Because if the mind is not processed to store information in the right place at the right time, that is when you begin to have people having multiple personalities, having problem with their mind, going crazy, having psychological disorders and all that. But that is not what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with concentration. And before we go into concentration, I just want us to have a clear picture of how our mind works. That will help us a great deal on how to begin to channel our thoughts. Now, back to the concept of noise. We say we don't like the noise, right? So much distraction, so much noise out there. And we say we don't like noise. We want to focus. We don't like distractions and all that. And I put it to you, if we don't like the noise, why is it so difficult to just let it go? I'm sure many people are having these questions on their mind. Why is it so difficult to just let it go? Why is it so difficult to just get rid of the noise and move forward? The reason is very simple. We have been engaging the things of our senses from our natural senses, which is the noise that is coming from outside has actually been trapped by our natural senses. If you look at most of all the issues, this is just some of them. Most of them are all centered around things that gives us concern. They give us stress. We talk about scarcity from time to time, inflation, economic issues, political issues, insecurity issues, global issues, our fears, and all that. These are all noise from the outside, engaging our natural senses. Now, if we look at the flip side, from the inside, we also have things that we focus on. Inside, we have things like gratitude, peace, wealth, abundance, joy, love, opportunities. These are the kind of things that go on inside of us compared to the things that go on outside of us. So by the time we juxtapose these two things together, we begin to see a combination of different things that we can actually choose to tap into. And that is why I have been driving the conversation that we should always tune inside, because there is more infinite intellectual resource inside than it is outside. I hope that makes sense. And that is why I'm inviting you into the world inside, that you tune the knob of your mind and begin to look at the different world that is within you. It is a completely different world inside of you, different world altogether that is inside of you. And that is what I am inviting you to tap into. All right. Now, I have shared this slide, I have shared this concept with you in one of the sessions, but I want to take time and break down this slide to you, because I believe many people, after looking at this particular piece of information, you will not take your mind for granted anymore. Now, let's look at it. Starting from what is happening outside, you've got waves, you've got vibration, and all these things surround you and they engage all your five senses, your natural senses, as I put them, your sense of sight, smell, savor, sound, and skin. And the information that these things, I said that these things are like remote controls. They are not particularly the device. They are just sensors that helps you to capture data from your environment. So the sensor and the data that they capture from your environment, they now feed your natural intelligence. Okay? They feed your natural intelligence, and that is what you now take on and process. This is a source of information. All right? Now, let's look at the world inside. What happens within? You get revelations. And they engage your supernatural senses, your sense of insight instead of sight, your sense of inspiration instead of smell, your sense of intuition instead of savor, your sense of instruction instead of sound, and your sense of instinct instead of skin. And what they give you is what you get as superior intelligence. What you get on the left side, which is those data from outside, is what you call natural intelligence. Now, what you get from inside is what you call your superior intelligence. Now, by the time you look at these two things together, they are actually feeding your mind. They are feeding your mind. Your natural intelligence and your superior intelligence, they are feeding your mind with the data that you need to carry out the respective actions that you need to carry out. All right? Now, when you now have different information feeding your mind now processes them, just like I've explained before, whether to your subconscious, your conscious, or your unconscious. And it is from there, you now begin to get what you call your intellect, your volition, and your emotion. I explained last week that everything that we are in terms of our capacity is a product of our choices. If you look at the triple N that I've explained before, your nature, nurture, and your neighborhood, the choices you've made, the places you've visited, the people you've engaged, the education you've had, everything that has fed your mind thus far builds your intellect level. Then you now go on to volition. Volition is your power of choice, your will to do stuff, where you now make informed decisions. You can make a decision based on the prior knowledge that you have, based on your prior analysis of the situation. You can say, I want to go this way, or I want to go that way. And your emotion, that is also one of the things that your mind feeds you. And I'm going to break down the emotion in the next level. Your emotion is actually a combination of your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs. I think I've talked about it before when I said all the combination of your thoughts now give you what you call feelings. And all the combination of your feelings, they give you what you call beliefs. Okay? So your thoughts feed on to become your feelings, which aggregate and feed on to become your beliefs. When you now have a strong belief system, that is when you are now convinced to make a decision, because you are making a decision based on your conviction. And your conviction is a product of your beliefs. I hope I am not losing you yet. I just wanted to follow closely. And that is why I have chosen to share slides today, so that you can look at it as I'm sharing it. And you can also understand what actually goes on inside of you before the things that go on outside of you. So all that has happened so far has been happening inside of you, all the way from your source of intelligence to your decisions. The mind has processed it. It has given you intellect, will, and emotion. You now have thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and they now help you to make decisions. Now, when you make decisions, it is your decisions that drive your actions. For instance, the decision to get up from where you are to stand up, before you eventually stand up, there has actually been a decision in your mind to stand up. If you want to sit down, the action of sitting down is driven by a decision to sit down. If you want to make a phone call, the action of making a phone call is driven by a decision. Every action is always driven by a prior decision. That is how the mind and body works. And if you recall, I mentioned last week that your head and your heart must align before your hands can go to work. This is exactly what I am explaining. Because if your head is not in alignment with your heart, the hand cannot be instructed to go to work. So if you have not processed information all the way to decision level, you cannot engage in actions. I hope you're following me thus far. Now, if you now look at the actions that you've been taking in the course of your life, either actions that you have been taking in this challenge or actions that you have been taking for your family, for your business, for yourself, every action that you are taking is aggregating. And I've made it clear that you need to have consistency over intensity. So it is the more you have a pattern of actions that you carry out routinely, not that you start now and stop tomorrow. It is when it becomes a routine that you can now call it habits. You can see the flow now. So decisions drive actions that aggregate to become habits. And when you now have a retinue of positive habits, then you are on your way to manifesting the desire that you have set out to achieve. I hope this slide has opened our eyes and given us better understanding of how mind is over matter. I'm sure you must have heard that many times, mind over matter. This is exactly the illustration of how the mind gets information that drives the body. The body is made of trillions and trillions and trillions of cells that form together to become tissues, that form together to become organs, and they have organ systems from your digestive system to your neurological system, your circulatory system, your skeletal system, your muscular system, every system in your body works on this same process. And the memory, the data that drives the standard operating procedure of all these systems to function are all stored in your unconscious mind. I hope that makes sense thus far. Now let's take it a little further to the next level. Having all of this at the back of our mind, let's come back to ourselves. We want to learn how to concentrate. We want to learn how to focus. We want to learn how to get rid of distraction. And this is the practical approach. First thing you ask yourself is, can you do nothing for 1 minute? Follow me closely. Can you do nothing for 1 minute? And when I say nothing, I am referring to your natural senses. Because the areas where most of us struggle, or where we are dealing with distractions, where we are dealing with noise, all of them are traceable, if not all of them, most of them, 99% of our distractions are traceable to our 5 natural senses. If you agree with me, put it in the comment section. That 90 to 99% of all the challenges that is facing us, hindering us from concentrating, that is causing a distraction in our lives, they are either traceable to the things we see, traceable to the things we smell, traceable to the things we hear, traceable to the things we feel on our skin, and traceable to the things we taste. They are all natural sensational issues. Now, having that at the back of your mind, when I am asking you to do nothing for the next 60 seconds, I am simply asking you to deactivate your natural senses. Can you do that? That means, can you shut your eyes? Can you shut your ears? Can you shut your skin? Can you shut your nose? Can you shut your taste? And when I say shut your nose, I don't mean you shut the faculty that breathes. I'm asking you to shut the faculty that smells. And I want you to follow me closely on this journey. We are going on an exercise now where you say to yourself, you want to shut your eyes, you want to shut your skin. And when I'm talking about shutting your skin, it starts with something as simple as the watch on your wrist. Do you have a watch that vibrates? Do you have a phone in your hand or in your pocket? Do you have anything that can distract you once it touches your skin? Something as simple as a fly, an insect, a mosquito, a piece of cloth, anything falling on your skin to call for your attention is a distraction. So when I say shut your skin, I am simply asking you to sit still in such a way that nothing will touch your skin to distract you. When I'm asking you to shut your nose, I'm simply asking you to go to a place that is free of distractive smell. It could be perfume, it could be food, it could be air freshener, it could be anything. As long as it distracts your sense of smell, it is a distraction. So can you shut your sense of smell, which is go to a place that is completely odorless? You see where I'm going with this? Then you think about your taste as well. Is there anything in your mouth that can distract you via your sense of taste? Same applies to your hearing. Is there anything that is making any decibel of sound that can distract you? That is what I mean by doing nothing for 1 minute. And I want you to embark on this challenge. You are free to pause this video at this moment and time yourself. You don't need to hold on to the phone so that it doesn't become a distraction or the stopwatch or whatever it is that you're using, but just set a timer and do nothing for the next 60 seconds. Now, this is what is going to happen. While you're trying to do nothing for 60 seconds, you are going to eventually tune out your outside noise. But guess what? You will now tune in your inside noise, because there is also noise coming from the inside. Your mind begins to go crazy. Your mind begins to drift from one thought to the other. But here's the catch. You are now going to discipline yourself to say it's okay when your mind wanders. But what you try to do is to catch your mind from wandering and bring it back to the assignment that, hey, my mind, you've got just 60 seconds to be still. This is how you reset your energy. Another interesting way you can go about this is while you shut down your sense of smell, you can rather focus on your breathing. Because the mind is not wired to be idle. The mind is wired to be processing one thing or the other. I mean, if you can process 80,000 thoughts in a day, and you just want to take 1 minute to do nothing, it will struggle. So you need to now find something to feed it to think about. So rather than doing absolutely nothing, what you end up doing is saying, you know what, I would rather sacrifice something. It could be my breath that I'm breathing. It could be a hum. It could be a thought. You can say, you know what, I just want to think about this screen that I'm looking at for the next 60 seconds. Whatever it is you want to think about, you can fix your thoughts to it. It is when you don't fix your thoughts to anything in particular that the mind begins to go crazy and go all over the place. And before you know what's happening, you are completely distracted because there is so much noise coming from within, based on all the things that the senses have captured before I give this instruction. That's when your mind begins to wander, begins to go here, go there, all over the place. So you realize that even when I say you should think about nothing for 60 seconds, it is humanly impossible to think about nothing for 60 seconds. It is humanly impossible. Because while you're trying to think about nothing for 60 seconds, while you're trying to do nothing, the process of trying to do it becomes a distraction itself. So you'll be forced to think about something. But what I'm trying to teach you here is how to begin to reduce the number of factors that create noise from the outside. Let me take you on another journey. When you do all this and you shut your mind and you now go black, you go blank. As you can see, my screen is blank right now. And this is the part where you can pause and time yourself for another 60 seconds. Your time starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, you have done 30 seconds. Now, what I want you to do is to ask yourself, what have you been doing in the past 60 seconds? I beg your pardon. What have you been doing in the past 60 seconds? Then you wait. What you have actually been doing is what I call mindfulness. Your ability to reduce your thoughts to the barest minimum, where you focus your attention on one thing and one thing in particular in the present moment. You are not imagining the future. You are not reliving your past. You are focusing on the present moment and you are being intentional about it. You are deliberate about it in such a way that whenever you drift, you bring yourself back. You drift, you bring yourself back. You drift, you bring yourself back. And in all of this, you are not particularly analyzing that thought. Neither are you trying to jump into a conclusion, but you're just thinking. So when you ask me, what is the definition for mindfulness? I will give you this equation. It is attention plus present, which is now, plus intention minus conclusion. Now, this might sound like a bit of grammar, but I want you to focus on the 4 keywords here. The first one is attention. That is the biggest asset that you have. The attention that you give to anything at all. Whether the attention you give to yourself, the attention you give to your family, the attention you give to your job, your business, your career, the attention you give to anything. Attention. So when you pay absolute undivided, undistracted attention to something in the present moment. And you do it with a high level of intentionality, of deliberateness. That is what you mean by the attention plus present plus intention. And in all of this, there is zero judgment. There is zero analysis. There is zero conclusion. There is zero outcome or output. You are not trying to analyze or trying to process what you are just subjecting your mind to that thing. What it does is it declutters your mind and helps you to reset your energy. And that is what we all need to do from time to time, especially when we get drowned in noise, so much noise that is beginning to overwhelm us and keeping us distracted from focusing on a task per time. We just need to shut down on every other factor so that we can focus. I hope this is making sense. Let me move forward. Let's talk about attention distribution. If you look at my slide right now, you can see that I have the natural sense on the left, the natural senses on the left, and I have the super sense or the supernatural sense on the right. Now, let's use illustration of decibels to paint a picture of where our attentions lie at the moment. To a large extent, by default setting, this is where most of us are on the average by default setting. At this level, our sense of sight, skin, savor, sound, and smell are fully optimized. But guess what? When all our external senses are fully optimized, this is actually a picture of how our supernatural senses are whenever our natural senses are optimized. Does this make sense? Now let's paint another scenario. Let's assume that you cut down on one of the senses. It doesn't matter which. But for the purpose of this illustration, let's assume you cut down on your sense of sight by simply shutting your eyes from seeing stuff. And you practice this exercise, what you can see on the screen will be an illustration of how the rest of your senses will be. Your sense of feeling will be more active. Your sense of taste will be more active. Have you noticed a situation where you put the food in your mouth and because you want to understand perfectly how it tastes, you get to shut your eyes? Has it happened to anybody before? I'm sure I can see you guys raising your hands wherever you are. This is exactly what is happening. You are actually shutting down a part of your natural senses to heighten the sensibility of your other senses. That is why you would realize that oftentimes people that are blind, you notice that the rest of their senses are always more improved, much improved, heightened, more sensational. Because of their sense of sight that has been dimmed, all of a sudden their sense of hearing is heightened. They can hear things that the person that is regularly seeing will not hear. They can smell things that the person that is regularly seeing would not smell, and so on and so forth. This is actually what is going on in that illustration. And that's why I'm using this illustration to make the point. And if you look at our super sense, you realize that it has also gone up one notch just because you cut down the attention that you have given to one of your natural senses. Let's take it a notch higher. Imagine if you cut down the attention that you give to 2 out of your 5 senses. This is what is going to happen to the remaining 3 natural senses, and this is what is going to happen to your super sense. They become boosted, they become heightened. And it doesn't stop there. If you can cut down the attention that you give to 3 out of 5 natural senses, you realize that the other 2 natural senses will be so sensitive, will be so heightened. What you couldn't hear before when your eyes were open, all of a sudden you begin to hear it. Your attention is just heightened because it is now distributed in a different manner. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you've become a bionic person or a superhuman. What it just simply means is that you have heightened your senses. Okay? So your sense of sound has now become heightened. It has now become more pronounced. Same to your sense of smell. And it doesn't matter which of the senses, in whichever format, the procedure is the same. All your natural senses, where they are distributed in the format that I'm explaining, it will affect whatever is left of your natural senses, and it will also affect your supernatural sense, which is your super sense. And it goes on and on. That when you even cut down 4 out of your 5 natural senses, you can see that the single natural sense that you have left is so heightened. This is attention distribution. And imagine what happens if you cut off the sensation from all your 5 senses. Your supernatural sense will be so amazing. I don't know if someone is catching something tonight from this illustration. It just simply means by tuning in, you can actually tap into some infinite intelligence just by cutting off all the external noise. Trust me, it is not easy, but it is possible. It takes practice. And all these things that I've been explaining thus far is what we actually refer to as meditation. And I hope I have been able to break down the process and the definition of meditation in a different and refreshing and insightful format compared to how meditation has been defined to you before now. I've said it in this session before that meditation is not about you floating in the air. Meditation is not just about you pressing your index finger against your thumb. Meditation is not just about humming. All those things are means to an end. The end is when the attention from your senses are redistributed. That is meditation. Now, meditation is a practice that needs to be done as often as possible for you to triumph over the challenge of distractions. If you want to beat distractions, learn mindfulness, learn attention distribution, learn meditation. I hope I'm making sense this evening. So it is not just enough to say, because you hate noise, you want to let it go. Because many of you hate noise, but you still haven't been able to let it go. And this is the reason why, because you have not begun to tap into the power of mindfulness and attention distribution. The moment you embark on this exercise and you start doing it often, the flood of revelation that will hit your mind will blow your mind. I mean it metaphorically. But you get the point I'm trying to make. This is what we're discussing tonight. This is what I'm sharing with you tonight. And this also affects your perspective, because your perspective is your reality, and your reality is your perspective. You are either looking at something some way, or you just change the way you look at it and you begin to see a different thing. Now, the illustration that you're looking at right now is just playing with your sense of sight, looking at your lens and the focal length of your eyes, what it is focusing on. Is it focusing on the earrings that are close by, or is it focusing on the guitar player that is further down? But this is just a visual illustration of how the rest of your senses also create a perspective for you. There's a quote by Wayne Dyer. He says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And this is absolutely true. I'm sure I've seen comments about people trying to change the way they put or ascribe meanings to things based on the post that I shared in the course of the week. This is what I'm talking about. You need to begin to redefine your perspective. What is priority to you? What is valuable to you? What is positive to you? It helps you to determine the kind of things that you screen from your life. And trust me, you don't owe everybody your attention. You need to learn to mind your attention, mind your business. Even the scripture says, guard your heart with all intentionality. That's what the diligence part means, because it is from that, based on the slides that I've shared with you, that life comes out. Your decisions come out, your actions come out, your habits come out, your manifestations, the issues of life come from your mind. And that is within your heart set. And I hope this is making sense for a lot of people out there. And this is also another illustration that says, whatever you focus on, just as you're looking at this picture, if I ask you, what do you see? There are a number of things in the picture, but it will be a function of where your focus is. Some people can tell me that they see a sky blue shirt. Some people can tell me that they see a checkered tie. Some people can tell me that they see a pen. Some people can tell me that they see a pocket on the shirt, a breast pocket. Some people can tell me that they see ink stains on the pocket. Some people can tell me that they see my name as a watermark. You can see different things on this page, but whatever you see is a function of where your focus is. Whatever you focus on expands. The moment you continue to look at this checkered shirt, you begin to appreciate what kind of green it is. The more you look at this sky blue shirt, the more you appreciate the shirt. It expands. The more you look at the pen, the more you want to look closer to see what brand of pen it is. It expands. And the more you look at the ink stain, the more it expands. Whatever you focus on expands. And this is simply an illustration of your life. Whatever it is that you choose to focus on will expand. That means you have the gift of choice to expand whatever you want to expand in your life. Out there are lots of noise, but you can choose your melody. Maybe you want to write that down. Out there are all kinds of noise, but you can choose your melody. All right? Many of us must have done this experiment before. Maybe when we were kids, we must have done it with a magnifying glass. And this is simply to buttress the power of attention, the power of focus, where you get the magnifying glass on a hot sunny day and you try to converge the heat energy from the sun into one dot of focal point on a piece of paper until the heat converges to a particular point and burns the paper. That is the illustration I'm trying to paint here. And it's just to buttress the point that wherever your attention goes, that is where your energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. Note that again. Where attention goes, energy flows. My question to you is, where is your attention going? And as you can see, the illustration at the background, whenever it's dark, you could barely see anything. You could barely see the palm tree. You could barely see the other trees. But it is in the point where you focus attention, because attention can also be typified as light. Where you shine your light is what you see. So when you shine your light, you begin to see things that you didn't see before. And that's what concentration is all about. Attention distribution, mindfulness, focus on one thing at a time. You understand now that the mind has different compartments, and it is not everything that should always be at the forefront of your mind. There are some things, for instance, you can go to a networking session and you greet people, you meet people, you get their name, hey, what's your name, so, and all that. But because you didn't save that name in your subconscious file, you realize that you might see the person tomorrow and like, oh, sorry, I forgot your name. Why? Because the name was not in a deeper folder. But if that person now becomes part of you that you see more often, of course, you will remember the name. This is what I mean by the distribution of your attention, which is also referred to as concentration. Yeah? And this is how you shape the world around you. We all have the tools and the choice to decide on what shape we want our world to take. The world around you, the world around us is shaped by what we pay attention to. So anything that does not add value to your life, refuse to pay attention to it. Does that make sense? And before I leave, I want to talk about opportunity radar. As you set your goals, as you map out your plans on whatever it is that you want to achieve, another thing you must understand now that you have the power of mindfulness, the power of attention distribution, one other thing you need to get on your list is how to turn on your opportunity radar. Opportunity radar simply means you are focusing your attention, focusing your energy in spotting opportunities whenever they show up. Opportunities, let me tell you off the bat, do not look like opportunities. Opportunities are like jewelry. They're like gold or diamond. You don't see gold in the ground looking like the processed bars of gold you see in a vault. You don't see diamond in the ground looking like the diamond on an engagement ring. Opportunities don't look like the opportunities you know. The best way to spot opportunities is to understand what they look like when they are still in their raw state. Opportunities in their raw states are simply problems, needs, circumstances and situations that are unfriendly. These are opportunities in disguise. So when you know that these are opportunities in disguise, you already have the head start to know what you look for. If you have seen miners before, those who go digging for minerals, they don't look pretty because you dig for minerals in the dirtiest of places. You excavate the ground, you dredge, you dig, you continue to polish until you spot something. That is the same illustration that you use whenever you're looking for opportunities. Whenever you see something that looks like it's a finished product, trust me, it is not an opportunity. It is when it is looking crude, when it is looking raw, when it is presenting a sense of potential for something big, that is when you should exploit it, because that is when you get the most out of it. It is not when it is looking processed or finished, because by the time you do that, what you actually get is not of so much value compared to when it is actually raw. So I just want to point that out. Opportunity radar is something that I teach on a different level entirely, but just for the purpose of this training, I just want you to note that opportunity does not look like the opportunity that you have in your mind. Opportunities look exactly the opposite. It is your job to convert the raw material to the finished product. Does that make sense? So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of tonight's session on concentration. And I hope it has been quite valuable. I hope it has been quite insightful for you. And I hope you have quite a number of learnings that you have noted even from tonight's session. And I believe that the slides has also been quite illustrative and helpful in helping you to place a clearer picture and a hang on things. So on this note, after watching this, I want you to drop a comment right here on YouTube. Let us have your questions. Let us have your concerns. Wherever you need clarity, let us know. You can drop that as a comment here on YouTube. And as you get back to the WhatsApp group, I want you to note down the words, "My attention is flowing in the right direction." I repeat, my attention is flowing in the right direction. I'll take it one more time. My attention is flowing in the right direction. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much for hanging in there. And you can feel free to watch this session as often as you can. And you can also share if you need to, for anyone that you know is dealing with distractions that need to have a hang of concentration and a focus on his journey in any point in their lives. Okay? Thank you very much and have yourselves a lovely week ahead. All right?